The desert wind howled across the surface of planet Ovrak 7. Sharp sands blew like needles in the night, biting at the air, whispering secrets no one wanted to hear. Most beings stayed inside after sundown. The cold was cruel. The storms were worse. But Jaxon was out there, alone in his rover, searching for spare parts near an old mining station. His breath fogged the cracked glass of the windshield. The temperature had dropped fast, faster than his suit could handle for long. He tapped the side of his helmet and muttered, 10 more minutes, then I'm heading back. He hadn't seen anyone for weeks, just broken satellites, empty fuel stations, and ruined outposts. This was a forgotten place. No one came here anymore. That's why he almost didn't believe what he saw next. At first, it looked like a shimmer of light in the storm. Then it moved. Fast, too fast. He slammed the brakes. The rover slid sideways a little, skidding across the hard-packed dust. Jaxon blinked and leaned forward. There, 2 figures. One collapsed on the ground, the other kneeling beside her, waving. It was a child, a girl with glowing teal skin and silver hair blowing wildly in the wind. Her hands were raised. Her mouth moved, but the wind ate her voice. Jaxon grabbed his medkit and jumped out, boots crunching hard against the gravel. The cold hit him instantly, but he didn't care. He ran toward them. The older woman, probably the girl's mother, was badly wounded. Her leg was bent wrong, her breathing shallow. Her skin was marked with strange, glowing patterns that pulsed like dim stars. She looked up at him once, eyes hazy with pain, and then passed out. The girl looked terrified. Her eyes were wide, glowing with a pale blue color. "Please," she said in a soft voice. "Please help her. She's my mother." Jaxon didn't hesitate. He lifted the woman into his arms. She was heavier than she looked. Her bones felt different, dense. The girl followed close behind, stumbling in the wind. He threw open the back of his rover and laid the mother down gently, covering her with a thermal blanket. Then he helped the girl climb in. "Hang on," Jaxon said. "I'm taking you somewhere warm." They didn't speak much on the ride back to this small shelter. The girl held her mother's hand the whole time. Her glowing eyes never left his face. She didn't blink once. Inside the shelter, he placed the woman on the cot and hooked her up to the little med unit he had. It beeped softly, scanning her injuries. "She'll be okay," he said, more to himself than to the girl. The girl stood quietly, arms wrapped around herself. "My name is Jaxon," he said gently. She stared at him for a moment. "I'm Elena." He nodded. "Is your ship nearby?" She shook her head. "It crashed. We were attacked. I don't know who they were." Jaxon looked at the mother's wounds again. Burns, broken bones, deep cuts. She'd been in a serious fight. Hours passed. Late in the night, the woman finally stirred. She blinked slowly, struggling to sit up. When her eyes landed on Jaxon, her whole body stiffened. "You?" she whispered. Her voice was dry, weak. "You touched me." Jaxon blinked, confused. "Yeah, you were dying. I carried you." The woman's eyes widened. Her breathing grew faster. She looked at Elena, who nodded. "It was him," the girl said softly. "He saved us." The woman tried to sit up more. "You don't understand. What you've done, it cannot be undone." "Calm down," Jaxon said. "You're safe now. You need to rest." But she shook her head. "No, you touched royal flesh. My blood carries ancient codes. Your DNA, your warmth, has activated the bond." Jaxon looked at her, confused. Elena's eyes filled with tears. "She means you've bonded with her. Our people have rules. Touching a royal in this way, it's sacred." Jaxon stepped back. "What are you talking about?" Suddenly, a deep hum filled the room. The med unit flickered. Then a beam of red light came down from the sky, right through the ceiling. Jaxon looked up just in time to see the ancient tracker inside the mother's body light up. sending a pulse across the stars. Across the galaxy, alarms began to ring. In royal palaces and shadowy council chambers, faces turned toward screens as one message flashed again and again. Human contact. Royal Boendi Ionanitii. Hybrid CETTCT. Back on Ovrak 7, Jaxon stared at the mother and daughter in disbelief. "What the hell did I just step into?" he whispered. Neither of them answered. But above them, in the cold silence of space, thousands of ships were already changing course, racing toward the one human who had done the unthinkable. And everything was about to change forever. Jaxon didn't sleep that night. He sat by the window of his shelter, staring out into the dead black sky of Ovrak 7. His mind was racing, but nothing made sense. The alien woman, Queen Syrexa, that's what Elena called her, was still unconscious. Elena had fallen asleep on the floor beside her, curled up like a small animal, quiet and shivering. Jaxon's hands trembled. He had just tried to help them. That was it. Nothing more. So why did Syrexa say something about a bond? And what the hell was a hybrid seed detected? That couldn't mean what it sounded like. Could it? Suddenly, the small shelter lights flickered, then went dark. Jaxon stood instantly. He grabbed the emergency lantern and turned it on. Elena woke up with a soft gasp, blinking in confusion. Then she looked at the roof. "It's starting," she whispered. Jaxon frowned. "What is?" But before she could speak, a deep rumble echoed from above. Dust rained down from the ceiling. Outside, a strange golden glow lit up the sky. Jaxon ran to the door and opened it slowly. A massive royal cruiser had landed just beyond the cliff. It was nothing like any ship he'd seen before. Sleek, smooth, alive. It looked more like a flying beast than a machine. Bright lights shone from its sides, scanning the shelter. "Who are they?" Jaxon asked. Elena stood beside him now, her voice steady. "They are my people. The Royal Guard. But they're not here to save us. They're here for you." The doors of the cruiser opened. 4 tall figures stepped out. They were dressed in black and silver armor, with long staffs that pulsed with energy. Their faces were hidden behind masks, but Jaxon could feel their eyes on him. Syrexa groaned inside. The guards marched forward, weapons lowered, their movements sharp and fast. One of them raised a small device. It blinked red when pointed at Jaxon. "Human male," one said in a deep mechanical voice. "You have made contact with the Queen. You will come with us." Jaxon raised his hands, confused and angry. "Wait a second. She was dying. I only helped." "You have created a bond." The voice interrupted. "The Royal Code confirms it. You touched her with intent. Your DNA is now inside her cells. The Queen is carrying life. Hybrid life." Jaxon's heart stopped. "That's not possible. Do not resist. You have changed the future of our bloodline. You now belong to the Empire." Before Jaxon could react, 2 guards grabbed his arms. Their grip was like iron. Elena tried to stop them, but another guard held her back gently. "No," she shouted. "He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't even know who we were." Syrexa, weak but conscious now, tried to sit up on the cot. "Stop," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Let him go." The guards hesitated. He didn't force anything. "The bond, it was fate," Syrexa said, eyes locked on Jaxon. "He saved my life. The old ways have chosen him. He is now part of us." The guards said nothing, but they did not release him either. Then Syrexa looked at Elena. "You feel it too, don't you?" Elena looked away, her cheeks flushing. She didn't answer, but her silence said enough. Jaxon stared at them both. "What are you saying?" Syrexa smiled weakly. "It seems the bond has extended." Jaxon's breath caught. "You mean?" Syrexa nodded. "She carries your seed as well." Jaxon stumbled back, his legs weak. How? That's not possible. I never even. Your touch, your skin, your breath. Our kind bonds through energy, not just flesh. We are not like your people, Syrexa said. Jaxon looked at Aelina, horrified. But her eyes were calm. I dreamed of you since I was a child, she whispered. You were always part of my story. Maybe it was always meant to be. Jaxon was frozen. 2 alien women, both carrying his children. He couldn't even process the words, but the guards were already moving. They surrounded him again, this time more carefully. We must return to the palace, one said. The council will decide what to do with you. Aelina took his hand. Don't be afraid. You're not alone now. The cruiser lifted into the air as soon as they stepped inside. Jaxon sat beside the window, watching the stars stretch into long lines as they entered warp speed. Inside the royal chamber of the ship, Syrexa rested again, breathing slower now. Aelina stood behind Jaxon, quiet. Do you want to know what happens next? She asked. Jaxon didn't answer at first. Then he looked at her. What? She leaned closer, her silver hair brushing his shoulder. You're not just a helper anymore. You're part of the royal bloodline now, whether you want it or not. He stared at the stars again. Back on Earth, he had nothing. No family. No name anyone cared about. Now he was at the center of the biggest event in the galaxy's history, and everyone would soon know his name. Jaxon sat in silence as the cruiser glided through space. His heart still hadn't slowed. The stars outside looked peaceful, but his mind was chaos. He had come to Ovrak 7 to escape everything. War, noise, humans. Now he was on a royal alien cruiser, guarded like a prisoner and spoken to like a prince. Aelina hadn't left his side since they boarded. She didn't speak much, just watched him with calm eyes that made him feel even more confused. The queen, Syrexa, lay on a cushioned bed of light near the ship's center. She looked stronger now, but still tired. Her hands rested gently on her stomach. Jaxon couldn't stop looking at her. She carried his child. Somehow, so did her daughter. He didn't understand the science, or magic, that made it possible. But no one questioned it. In fact, they acted like it was destiny. When they reached the royal world of Verax, the skies turned violet, and the clouds shimmered like glass. The palace was shaped like a giant shell floating in the air, held up by beams of pure light. As the ship docked, thousands of eyes watched through hologram feeds. The Queen's return was breaking news across the stars. But she was not the only reason people stared. Everyone wanted to see the human who had touched the Queen and done the impossible. Jaxon was taken into a grand hall made of crystal. The floor reflected the sky. High above, winged guards flew in slow circles. Below, alien nobles gathered, whispering and pointing. He's small, someone said. He looks soft, said another. Yet he made the bloodline bloom. Jaxon stood stiff, his hands at his side. He didn't understand their language, but the tone was clear. Suddenly, music rang out. The Queen entered the hall. She wore glowing robes that shifted color as she walked, and a crown of white flame floated above her head. Aelina walked behind her, dressed in dark green. Simple, but elegant. Her eyes were locked on Jaxon. The Queen raised her voice. Citizens of Verax, my life was saved by this human. My bloodline now carries his essence. He is not a stranger. He is now family. Gasps filled the room. Jaxon tried to speak, but couldn't find words. Then Syrexa stepped forward. She held out her hand toward him. Jaxon of Earth, do you accept the royal bond? Will you become consort to the crown, protector of the unborn line? Jaxon's mouth opened. Wait, what? Aelina stepped up beside her mother. It's not just about power, she said gently. This bond protects you, and us. The galaxy already sees you as more than human. If you say yes, no one can touch you without declaring war on the throne. Jaxon felt every eye in the room on him. He didn't know if he was dreaming. He didn't want this, but he also knew if he refused, he wouldn't last long in a galaxy full of enemies. He looked at Cerexa, then at Elena. 2 women, 1 royal bloodline, both pregnant with his children. He swallowed hard. I accept. The hall erupted in energy. Some cheered, some hissed, some left in anger. But it was done. That night, as Jaxon sat alone in a room made of starlight and water, a message blinked into the air in front of him. Bounty posted, human male, dead or alive. 9 million galactic coins. He stared at it in silence. His heart dropped. The galaxy wasn't celebrating. The galaxy was hunting. Suddenly, the lights dimmed. A quiet hiss came from the vents. Jaxon stood quickly. A shadow moved in the corner. Then another. He reached for the knife hidden under his bed. Not much use, but better than nothing. The shadow stepped forward, revealing a long figure in black with a blade that shimmered like glass. "You should not exist," the assassin said. "You're not one of us. You don't belong to their kind." Jaxon backed away slowly. The assassin leaped forward. A blast of green light shot through the wall, burning the attacker instantly. Jaxon looked up, breathless. Elena stood in the doorway, her hands shaking, a royal weapon smoking in her grip. Her voice was calm. "I told them they'd come." Jaxon stared at the ash on the floor. "That was for the bounty." She nodded. "You'll need guards now, and maybe a bigger bed." He blinked. "What?" Elena stepped closer. "You accepted the bond. You're not just her consort now. You're mine too." Jaxon looked into her glowing eyes. There were no answers, only more questions. And the galaxy was watching, waiting, and ready to burn. The royal planet of Verax didn't sleep after Jaxon accepted the bond. News of the human male who now carried the future of the alien throne spread faster than light. Crowds filled the sky plazas. Some shouted in joy, others in rage. Entire worlds tuned in to the broadcasts. Some called him a hero. Others called him a virus. All agreed on one thing. This had never happened before. In the quiet garden of the floating palace, Jaxon sat on a stone bench, his hands clasped tight, knuckles pale. He had faced war before. Guns. Death. But this was something different. Now his name was spoken in every corner of the galaxy. He looked up as Elena entered, carrying a small container of fruit. "Eat," she said softly, sitting beside him. "You haven't had anything all day." Jaxon gave a tired smile. "Don't think I'm hungry. Feels like I swallowed a star." She chuckled. "That's royal anxiety. We all get it before the Galactic Court." Jaxon froze. "That's real. The court." She nodded slowly. "They summoned you this morning. We tried to delay it, but it's already been decided." He stood quickly. "For what? I didn't do anything wrong." "No," she said. "You did something impossible. That scares people more." A few hours later, Jaxon stood at the center of a vast courtroom floating in space. It had no walls, just light, sound, and energy. Alien leaders from over 100 species sat in hovering seats that spun and shifted. Each wore different shapes, robes, armor, or nothing at all. Some had no faces, others had too many. But all their eyes focused on him. A massive voice echoed around them. It came from a central pillar of light. "Human, you are Jaxon of Earth." He nodded, heart thudding like a drum. "You have touched the Queen of Verax and her daughter." "Yes." "You have created life within their royal bloodline." He hesitated. "I didn't try to. But yes, that's what they told me." The light pulsed. "And do you now claim this bond as yours?" Jaxon looked to his left. Cerexa stood, proud and calm. To his right, Elena, watching him closely. He took a breath. "Yes, I do." A long silence followed. Then voices erupted, some angry, others confused. Humans are not evolved enough. This is sacred treason. He must be executed before the corruption spreads. No, he is proof of unity. The light dimmed for a moment. Then a panel of ancient alien scientists floated forward. They held strange devices and scrolls glowing with energy. The lead scientist, a creature with skin like flowing smoke, spoke clearly. We tested the queen and the princess. They both carry hybrid children. These children are developing faster than any normal being. They are showing strange traits. Define strange, someone demanded. The scientist hesitated. They are already forming neural pathways that can connect to multiple minds. They pulse with time energy. They may not be children as we understand them. A murmur of fear spread across the chamber. They may be gods, someone whispered. They may be weapons, said another. One leader stood, tall, armored, and cold. I demand the human be removed, contained, if not destroyed. Jaxon stepped forward, heart pounding. I didn't ask for any of this. I was alone. I helped someone in pain. I didn't know what it would cause. The tall leader sneered. And now you carry power that can shape reality. You expect us to believe you are harmless. Jaxon opened his mouth, but Sirexa spoke before him. I will say this once, she said, her voice sharp and full of power. This human saved me. He saved my daughter. And now he has saved our future. If anyone touches him, they touch my bloodline. She turned slowly. If you declare war on him, you declare war on me. A stunned silence. Then Aelina stepped forward. And I swear this, she added. If my mother falls, I will carry the war myself. The court went quiet. Even the light pillar flickered, as if unsure what to say. Then something happened. The courtroom shimmered, and every leader, every being, felt a wave of pressure pass through them. It wasn't visible, it wasn't loud, but it was felt. A presence. Soft, but deep. Warm, but eternal. The air cracked. The ground beneath their feet glowed. And then two orbs of energy appeared before Jaxon, hovering in the air. They pulsed gently, like hearts. Sirexa gasped. Aelina covered her mouth. The children, she whispered. They're speaking, Sirexa said, her eyes wide. A voice, not heard, but placed directly into every mind, whispered words in 1,000 languages at once. We are here. We are watching. Do not harm our father. Some fell to their knees. Some ran from the chamber. Others wept. Jaxon stood frozen, eyes wide. He felt them inside his heart. His children, still unborn, already powerful, already aware. The Galactic Court had no more words, no sentence, no vote. They simply watched as the future introduced itself. And the human who began it all stood quietly, both more terrified and more honored than he had ever been in his life. Rain fell gently on the floating towers of Verax. It was rare, water clouds drifting through the upper atmosphere, pulled in by weather machines and sacred chants. On this night, the rain was not just water. It shimmered like melted glass, soft and glowing, touching everything with a strange warmth. Inside the royal birthing chamber, the lights had dimmed. The walls pulsed with energy. Hundreds of healers stood at attention, watching monitors that showed things even they didn't fully understand. The queen lay still, her breathing steady but slow, surrounded by ancient machines made of bone and crystal. Aelina stood in another chamber nearby, her hands gripping the edge of a glowing bed, sweat pouring down her face. She said nothing. She made no sound. But her eyes were locked on the healer in front of her, who kept checking the readings and shaking his head in disbelief. The galaxy had waited for this moment. The children of the human and the royals, one from the mother, one from the daughter, were about to enter the world. And no one knew what to expect. Jaxon stood between both chambers, unable to move. He heard Syrex's soft breaths. He heard Elena's quiet gasps. He wanted to run to them both, but guards stopped him at every turn. Not to keep him out, but to protect him. From what, even they didn't know anymore. Outside the palace, millions of citizens gathered, eyes raised to the sky. Priests stood atop towers, singing in forgotten tongues. In every system touched by the Verax Empire, screens glowed with the same message. Today, the future is born. Inside the chamber, Syrexa cried out once, and the air changed. The walls trembled slightly. A pulse of light radiated out from her body, flowing over the guards, the healers, the palace, the city, the clouds above. And then, beyond, a full planetary wave. At the same exact moment, Elena collapsed into her healer's arms. Both children were coming, together, born at the same second, from mother and daughter. The healers panicked. Protocols had never been written for this. Crystals cracked. Monitors failed. One priest fainted from the energy surge. And then silence. Not a still silence. A living one. A kind of silence that made every cell in your body pause. Jaxon's legs gave out. He fell to his knees and whispered, "Please, let them live." Then a soft cry broke the silence. But it wasn't a normal cry. It was music. Not a song, not a scream, but a note so pure it felt like sunlight through your skin. Every being who heard it paused. Birds stopped flying. Ships froze in orbit. Even the planet itself seemed to turn slower. The doors to the birthing chambers slid open. Two healers stepped out. Each carried a bundle wrapped in cloth spun from stardust. Syrex's child floated gently in the healer's arms, his skin a pale silver, his eyes glowing gold. No hair, no fingernails, no belly button. His tiny hands made patterns in the air, leaving trails of light. Elena's daughter blinked softly, her eyes the color of storm clouds, her skin a warm copper. Her cry was softer, but with each sound she made, flowers bloomed at the feet of the healer carrying her. Jaxon stood in shock. They were beautiful. Not in a normal way, but in a way that made your heart hurt. "Are they okay?" he whispered. The head healer, an elder who had delivered 500 royal births, looked at Jaxon, his face pale. "They are not like us," he said. "I know," Jaxon whispered. "No," the healer said again. "You do not understand. They are not like us. They are not like you, or her, or anyone." Jaxon stepped forward. Syrexa reached from her bed and took her child into her arms. Elena, weak and trembling, did the same. Both mothers smiled. Both cried. And then something happened. The two infants looked at each other, and they reached out, arms outstretched across the small space between them. And in that moment, a sound like thunder rang out across the entire city. Light shot from the infants' fingertips and connected midair. Everyone around them collapsed to the ground, not from pain, but from a pressure of thought. In their minds, they heard a whisper, a voice that was not a voice, a feeling that was not a sound. "We are the bond. We are the key. Do not fear. We remember." Jaxon dropped to his knees, tears pouring from his eyes. He didn't understand what was happening, but deep in his bones, he felt it. These were not just his children. They were not just royal heirs. They were memory, future, and balance. He had brought something into the universe that the stars themselves would bow to. And even though he was just a man, an ordinary human from a forgotten planet, he now held something more powerful than any king or god. He held a family. And the universe would never be the same again. The sky over Verax was no longer the same. Since the birth of the hybrid children, clouds glowed with silver veins, and the stars above flickered in strange rhythms, as if blinking to a beat no one could hear. The people spoke in whispers now. Even the boldest warriors walked softer. The energy on the planet had shifted. Something deep, ancient, and unknowable had awakened, and at the center of it all was one human. Jaxon no longer walked the palace like a stranger. He walked like a man holding the future in his hands. But the burden was heavier than he let on. He hadn't slept much in days, not since the children were born. He visited both chambers each night, one where Cerexa cradled her son in soft glowing cloth, and another where Eilina sang to her daughter, her voice shaking with wonder. Each child was growing faster than normal. Too fast. In just 6 days, Cerexa's son, named Cal, could already sit upright. His eyes followed people with perfect focus. He did not cry. He watched, always watched. Eilina's daughter, Nira, was speaking. Small words, yes, but real words, sometimes in Jaxon's tongue, sometimes in the Queen's ancient dialect, sometimes in languages even the palace archives didn't recognize. No one could explain it. Not even the elder scientists, who had sealed themselves in vaults trying to study what these children were. Some claimed they were a blessing. Others whispered they were a curse. Jaxon didn't care about titles. He only knew one thing. He loved them, both of them, fiercely. He had never felt anything like it. Not for anyone. Not even for himself. But peace doesn't last long in a galaxy ruled by fear. The Royal Council met again, this time without permission. Across a hidden system, a secret message spread from star to star. The human has made the Empire weak. The children are too powerful. The throne must be reclaimed. The bloodline must be corrected. Assassins were called. Armies were raised in silence. And in shadows, rival queens began preparing to seduce the human themselves. If one human could create gods from royal blood, then what if he did the same for them? Inside the palace, Jaxon had no idea what was coming. He was too busy holding Kale in his arms, while Nira reached out from Eilina's arms to touch her half-brother's cheek. The moment their skin met, the entire garden around them bloomed. Flowers opened. Trees bent toward the children. Birds sang notes that had never existed before. Eilina looked at him, her eyes tired. They're changing the planet. I know, Jaxon said softly. Cerexa stepped into the garden next. Her robe floated behind her, her crown glowing dimly. They're not just changing the planet, she said. They're changing time. Jaxon looked at her. What does that mean? She didn't answer. Not with words. She pointed to the sky. A crack had formed in the upper clouds. Through it, a second moon could be seen, a moon that wasn't there yesterday, a moon from another time. They'd broken the veil, Cerexa said. Jaxon stared in disbelief. Are they dangerous? No, Eilina whispered. They're just too powerful for any one world. That evening, a foreign ship landed just beyond the palace walls. It flew no flags. It sent no warning. But from it emerged a figure dressed in red silk and black armor. Her face was covered, her steps silent. Behind her walked 6 handmaidens and a beast the size of a truck, a creature with 12 legs and no eyes. Jaxon watched from the palace balcony as the guards bowed before her. Who is that? He asked. Cerexa answered grimly. That is Queen Larovia of the Yaran Empire. She has never visited any world but her own. Why now? Jaxon asked, already knowing the answer. To see you. Jaxon turned to leave, but Cerexa grabbed his arm. Be careful. She's not like me. She won't ask for love. She'll take it if she wants it. That night, Larovia entered the grand hall like smoke. She sat in front of Jaxon, her face still hidden. You changed the royal bloodline, she said. Jaxon said nothing. You gave this galaxy a future, or maybe an end. I want the same. He frowned. I'm not some key you can turn. Larovia removed her mask. Her face was beautiful, but cold. Cold in a way that didn't feel human or alive. Then what are you? She asked softly. You gave them children of light. What will you give me? Jaxon stood. Nothing. Larovia's eyes narrowed. She waved her hand. Instantly, the beast beside her let out a deep, gurgling sound. The palace shook, and in another second, Mira's voice echoed through the walls. No. The glass of the palace windows cracked. Larovia gasped. Kale stepped into the hall, his feet not touching the ground. Nira followed, her small hand glowing with blue light. The beast growled. The children raised their hands in silence. The beast vanished. No scream, no bones, just gone. Larovia stood, her body trembling. She looked at the two children, then at Jaxon. "You've made monsters," she said. Jaxon stepped in front of them. "No, I made family." Larovia backed away, her face pale for the first time. She left without another word, and the entire galaxy felt the ripples of what had just happened. One human, two children. A line had been drawn, and it was clear now. No empire could control what was coming next. The palace on Verax no longer stood still. It breathed. Lights in its walls pulsed like a living heart. The sky above shifted colors each hour, crimson at dawn, silver at midday, deep blue with streaks of gold by night. Even the stars seemed to hover closer, as if listening, watching. And at the center of this strange new calm was a human man who never asked for any of it. Jaxon stood at the top of the high balcony, looking down at a planet that no longer felt alien. Soldiers bowed when they saw him. Elders whispered his name like it was sacred. Artists sculpted his face. Children asked if he could fly. He was a legend now, a symbol. But to him, he was still just a man who had tried to help two strangers on a broken world. He held both children in his arms, Kale and Nira. They no longer acted like babies. They moved, spoke, and thought like beings far older. Their bodies were still small, but their minds held galaxies. Kale liked silence. He stared into space for hours and then whispered truths no one understood. Nira liked songs. She made the wind move with her voice. Sometimes flowers grew from the cracks in the floor where she walked. Jaxon felt the weight of them, not as a burden, but as something sacred, something final. Inside the palace, the council met again. There was fear in the room, not because of Jaxon, but because of what the children might become. Their powers grow each day, one elder said. What if they cannot be controlled? Another leaned forward. What if they decide the galaxy is not worth saving? They are just children, Alina said, calmly. No, Sirexa replied. They are more than that. They are answers to questions we never dared to ask. And then the alarms rang. From the edge of the system, a massive fleet appeared, 12 empires united, with ships larger than moons. They did not send greetings. They sent warnings. Surrender the human, surrender the children, or we erase your world. Jaxon stood on the steps of the palace when the news reached him. He didn't flinch. He only looked at the sky. Alina walked up beside him, her eyes calm. They're afraid. I don't blame them, Jaxon said. Are you afraid? She asked. He looked at her, then down at the children. Only of what I might have to choose. Later that night, as the fleet moved closer, Sirexa summoned Jaxon to her private chamber. The queen wore no crown, no royal robe, just a soft white cloth around her shoulders. Long ago, my people believed a fire would fall from the stars, that it would burn away the old, and leave something new. I thought it would be a weapon, she said, but now I see. It was you. Jaxon didn't know what to say. I won't let them take you, she continued. We'll fight. Every ship, every soldier. Jaxon shook his head. That's not the way. If they fear us now, killing them will only prove them right. She looked at him for a long time. Then what will you do? Jaxon took a deep breath. He didn't know how to explain what he felt, but something inside told him the answer had already been born. The children. That night, He stood on the tallest platform of the palace, holding hands with Nira and Kale. A communication beacon hovered above them. Every ship in the fleet was watching. Every world, every leader, every screen in the galaxy was tuned in. Jaxon's voice echoed through space. "I am Jaxon of Earth," he said. "I was no one. I am still no one. But I helped someone in pain. And that choice brought me here." He looked at the sky. "These children are not monsters. They are not mistakes. They are what happens when fear is replaced with kindness, when bloodlines mix instead of battle." The stars shuddered. Kale raised his hand. Nira did too. Their eyes glowed like suns. And suddenly, across the galaxy, every ship, every being, felt warmth, a memory, a moment of peace, a mother's touch, a lover's voice, a child's laugh. For 1 second, war was forgotten. The admirals lowered their weapons. The ships turned away. And the great fleet left, without firing a single shot. Peace had come, not from power, but from understanding. From something simple, something human. Days later, Jaxon walked alone through the city plaza. No guards, no robes, no crown. Just a father. Kale and Nira walked beside him, one on each side. The people bowed, but he just smiled. He passed a small alien boy sitting alone on the steps. The boy looked up, afraid. Jaxon knelt beside him and handed him a fruit from his satchel. "Hungry?" he asked. The boy nodded slowly and took it. Jaxon stood and walked away. And in that quiet, forgotten moment, a historian nearby whispered the final words that would be written into the great archives of time. "He came from a broken world, but healed 1,000 more. One human changed our destiny." And the stars never blinked the same way again.